Hi, I'm Brian Sack. I'm a partner at TLV Partners, and I'm excited today to have Shahar Tal, who is the founder and CEO of Cyata Security, with us to talk about his journey. Shahar, it's only a couple of months since your acquisition to Checkpoint, from what was a pretty rapid journey that we had together, but one that also covered a bunch of different deviations and pivots and humps along the way. So I think it'd be really interesting if you could introduce yourself, introduce Cyata Security, and give us the journey in brief of what you guys went through.
Okay, it's a big question, but let's jump right into it. So for those of you who don't know me yet, my name is Shahar Tal. Quick 20 years in the cybersecurity industry. I started out in the Army, Air Force, then Unit 8200. I joined Checkpoint. That was 12 years ago.
Closing the loop.
Closing the loop today, yes. And I led malware and vulnerability research over there. After this great short ride, I joined Cellebrite, where I spent almost the next 8 years or so leading the research labs. Super interesting. A lot of really state-of-the-art work in understanding how to unlock and extract digital evidence for mobile phones and more. And then we started Cyata. That was basically 2024. And everything came together at February 2026, where the acquisition was closed and announced.
Before we talk about the story of Cyata, I want to divert and talk about something else that you did in your life. You mentioned it. You were the leader of the research division at Cellebrite, the security research division at Cellebrite. Security research is something that we hear about all the time. We hear about how expensive those researchers are to hire, but I think it's a bit of a black hole as to what security researchers actually do. Mm-hmm. Give us an insight into what does a security researcher do, and what does one do, at the frontier of security research today at a company like Cellebrite?
So security research is quite a broad term, and I think there's a lot of room for many roles. Usually, when we speak about vulnerability researchers or the high end of vulnerability researchers, it's a rare skill to have, and the goal of this profession is understanding systems very deeply, often to the point where you understand it better than the person who wrote that piece of software. And then finding those little bugs, little misbehaviors and things that create side effects that when you compose them masterfully, sometimes even like as a form of art, you can create the exploits, right? So you can make the software behave in unintended ways. And eventually, that typically leads to the ability to run code on a piece of, on a computer, or gain a permission that you shouldn't have had. And that's a profession that has grown in Israel specifically, just because we have such a great, defense forces with a lot of specialized training and very difficult challenges. But you pour those very talented teenagers that have been doing computers have been doing this for a while. You pour them into this highly demanding environments, and you put them with the best trainers for 5 or 6 years. You get a lot of people who are really skilled at this. And yes, we have seen those salaries increase and start inflating in recent years, just because the understanding of what these guys can create, right? At Cellebrite, we would understand how to, sometimes people say hack into an iPhone. The terminology aside, it's about unlocking an iPhone, which is a very difficult problem. And it's something that Apple is investing millions in every year. So being able to break that means understanding a lot of minute details. That's why you really do need the best people to do that.
Yeah, two things that I saw which you took from your life as a security researcher to startups was the first was that one thing you told me was that research is actually very similar to a startup, because you have lots of different research groups and they have ideas of potential exploits, but you don't necessarily know which one is going to succeed. And you have to place bets and allocate resources to each group and hope for success. And so you have to take that same leap of faith that you would when you're starting a startup. And I saw that very much in the work that you guys did as founders. And then the second thing is that I think Cyata did an incredible job at utilizing the research talent that the company had in order to find exploits, find vulnerabilities, and use that to legitimize the company and somewhat differentiate it from the market that they were operating in, by showing the rest of the world that we're legitimate, we can find these exploits, we can take advantage of these vulnerabilities. And you use that in PR and part of the product, which I thought was really, really impressive.
Yeah, well, thank you. I think, to both of your points. One, yes, of course you have to place your bets. To try to think about this like a startup. I think throughout the years you develop this like killer instinct around following what seems right. And it can come from a very deep technical angle. But with experience, you kind of know where you should follow, right? And it's, of course, you always, place your chips strategically,
right.
But you do need to know, kind of where to wager and why. And I really appreciate, like I used to interview about this a lot when I ask when I interview leaders about that killer instinct, seeing how, what pulls them into a certain direction. And so, yeah, I do think it's something that's a bit interesting and comparable. On the PR front, yes, I think it's a skill that is worth a lot of dollars, right? We've constantly seen that. Like we're constantly seeing that with a lot of startups. They want to put themselves on the world stage. They want to announce things that they discovered. They want to be a part of the news cycle. And we've seen that with a lot of the successful companies now. When you have a great black hat talk, that deserves attention. That's merit, right? That means you're doing things that are state of the art, that are impactful. And so it gives you that credibility. And in fact, it was like a continuous discussion amongst us, right? Especially in the beginning, where every person was, no one's expendable, right? So like we have to invest in the product, but then we said, no, we really need this part.
Right.
And so we set a researcher aside to run in this very specific direction that ended up blowing up with a great piece of research.
Right. It paid dividends.
And so it paid dividends, because then you can kind of, piggyback on top of that. And then, we gave this great talk of Black Hat, which is well recognizable, right? Especially when you're speaking to CISOs.
Yeah. I think it's a very good lesson for all startups to learn that everyone tries to play the same playbook for PR, and you guys were able to come up with something that was differentiated and gave you real validity and differentiated yourselves.
Yeah, it's also about storytelling, but it's basic part of what you're supposed, like marketing and how you're supposed to differentiate yourself. And when you do it well, also on the research front, there's dividends.
All right, so we said before that Cyata was a relatively rapid journey. Just wrote down the timeline just so we get it all accurate. You raised a seed in July 2024. You launched a PAM product shortly after in around September. You closed your first customer, which was over $100,000 land, which was pretty impressive in November 2024. And then in February 2025, you decide to pivot into AI security. I would love if you could talk us through, what made you make the decision to pivot, even though, there was some good data on the table to suggest that what we were doing was right. We landed our first big customer. We had some interesting POCs running at the time. What made you make that pivot, and talk us through that process?
Yeah, so we don't have enough time today, I think, to really talk through those months of deliberation, which in retrospect, I will say was too long of a process, right? We should have been able to, come to that understanding earlier, but I think it's very natural, so you hear about it all the time.
Yeah.
At some point after, I've pitched for the first few dozen times, and then another dozen, and then another dozen pitches, and then you start, talking to whomever you can find about this idea of yours, and it's not working. And it's not working because I'm not feeling the lean in that I am supposed to be feeling, right? It's something that, nothing comes commercially out of it. Right. Even if people appreciate the idea and they appreciate the technology, then, it's nice, but that doesn't sell anything. And so for us, that was something that triggered really this pivot talk and the deliberation, and looking at that opportunity, that that customer that we landed, we had we also analyzed this situation and how it came to pass, and we understood, and I knew, like in my gut, that it wasn't because of our differentiated idea. We got that account because they loved the team, they loved how we were speaking, right. And they tested and everything went well with their POC, and so it's sometimes even great traction doesn't mean you're doing well. Right. At least that's the way that I was feeling back then. And then we had those conversations, right? So we were speaking about the pros and cons, and then I remembered, as we were speaking, like in our earlier conversations, we actually met like a long time before we raised, and we had a good chemistry, and I remember you pitching us, what it means, like for TLV partners to be a seed stage company, like a seed stage VC, like knowing what that means. And you were talking about celebrating pivots, like it's like understanding something is not working, right. And you'd rather have it happen earlier than being stuck with something that doesn't work. And I couldn't fully appreciate that at the time, but I think it clicked like as we were experiencing this, and I can say, and I've been saying this to people also, that every word that you said to us like very early on in the process, you were able to stand behind that, and I think that's super meaningful in what partnership means in building a company. Like having that trust in making sure that our partner is going to be with us, support us, rather than harass us in those processes. I think was really like a key enabler in making this an efficient process.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. Well, we definitely think about pivots as something to celebrate rather than a failure, because as you said, you've learned something and you can now adjust course, and the earlier you can do that, obviously the better. And from our experience, it's very abnormal for a company at this stage not to go through pivots. It's such a natural part of the founding journey. It's such a natural part of the seed stage journey that it's almost expected. It feels very natural to us when a company walks through the door, one of our own portfolio, and says, today we're going to pivot. That's something to celebrate, because we realize that they've realized something in their market that that means that they should adjust course really quickly.
Yeah, and I remember another thing that you told us, which for some it kept reverbing in my head, like as we were doing this. Said, guys, that's why I'm so happy we raised so much. Now you can try out 3 more ideas. Like right. There's 3 more to go. Right. And that gave us the confidence. More than anything, we felt confident of going forward. And I think that is super important for anyone, any stage. Have the confidence in trying out what you're set to try. And then thank you for enabling that.
You mentioned earlier that one of the cons of pivoting to the AI security space was the competition. That there were already 15 or so very well-funded companies in the space, and all who were doing very, very similar things. You also were able to find, especially later on, some real product differentiation, which helped. And I remember we spoke about this as a potential con. And I think we were right and wrong at the same time about those red ocean dynamics. We were right because there were indeed 15 companies that were very well funded, and there was very little product differentiation early on in that market. Where we were wrong, or where I was definitely wrong, is we just didn't understand the sheer size that this market would become and is continuing to become, and also how desperate customers were going to be to get their hands on AI security solutions as they start to adopt agents and other AI products. So given that context, I'm interested to hear where do you prefer to operate? Do you prefer to operate in a market where there is lots of existing competition but a well-known problem like we were in the AI security market, or in a blue ocean dynamic where you're one of very, very few companies, maybe the only well-funded company, but it's not clear when the market will arrive, who the customers are, what the use cases are?
It's interesting. It's an interesting question. Who am I to say, right? I don't have all the experience in that space, but in a sense, I wanted to be exactly where I was, and let me tell you why. Because yes, there were already quite a lot of players, in this space for a few years now, like 2 or 3 years, where people started figuring out, what to do, and the market was still trying to understand I think we're actually still trying to understand what's needed, but put it aside, we had the privilege of watching everyone else, surveying that, understanding, what they're doing now and what we might do differently. So I think that that vantage point is a true advantage to us, because all of those players were already invested in production environments, in architectures, in directions that they committed to, with engagements that they're committed to, and they were not, with a clear mindset and resources to go after what we thought was a better, more interesting direction. And so my action item, on that, was, well, here's the new thing that I think everyone should be building. Let's go and build that thing very quickly in a high quality, with the product depth that we think is, the comprehensive kind of approach that we thought was mandated in this world. And so that's exactly what we did. I'll give us that. We did build it very quick. We also had another side wind helping us, which was we were there just as agentic coding kind of started happening in a meaningful way. And so we also had no baggage to take with us on that journey as we were starting to write very quickly. And so we adopted all these tools very quickly, and we also figured out how to do it in a way that does not affect quality. And so there's if this was an R&D podcast, we'd talk a lot about how Dror said, I don't care if all the code is written by agents, I am reading every line of code that goes into our code base, right? So that was a whole thing, but we adopted that.
Before we talk about the acquisition, which we'll get into, you mentioned Dror, who was the VP R&D. You had another co-founder named Baruch Weissman. He was the CTO. You guys had a really unique relationship, the three of you. Also, just a clear breakdown in who was responsible for what, which I thought was very, very healthy. But you were very much in sync at the same time. Tell us a little bit about the founding relationship, how you all met, and how you guys operated.
It's a true rare occurrence. Just by hearing of all the stories, understanding how a lot of companies actually break down over these disagreements. We have great disagreements, And I think that was part of the thing that I really evaluated very like the beginning. So, just to recap about the story, I've been working with Dror for many years at Celebrite. So he was like a group leader under me, and we knew each other a lot. And even though we have great differences in opinion and in some of like our perceptions of the world, we have great respect for one another, for what we can do, and for the for how we can come to an agreement or to a disagreement in that way.
Right.
And so I felt like that was an amazing opportunity. When Dror, like, I'll give it to him, he was the one behind, like, let's do this. I've been waiting for you to do this, and he came to me. And then Baruch, I've known for a while. I tried to recruit him into Celebrite, but couldn't. And then it came to the opportunity when the three of us met, and then Baruch was eager about starting a company, and then we started talking about everything, talking about why each of us is going into this space, and what we think about the different challenges, and we also set it in paper. So we had our founder agreement very early on, and maybe also because of this unique arrangement, a lot of people don't know, Baruch and Dror are brothers-in-law, and so like they have this unique combination of power, like theoretically at least, and so it came to writing that I would be a deadlock breaking decision maker for everything that we don't agree about. And that was like set in agreement in writing, and I think that helped us because it was clear that I was going to have the final say. And even when when we came to disagreements, we knew we were not going to get stuck. And I was always in the mindset that we're going to get through this, and I'll just make the best decision according to everything that I know. And my co-founders had this explicit trust in my capability or my abilities to do that. And unlike a lot of founder relationships that I've seen, we never had a glitch, and I think it's about the of course each person and our qualities. And some people will say, well, you haven't been running long enough for it to happen. Yes, we had deep disagreements, but they didn't cause like anything, like any deterioration.
Okay, let's move on to the eventual acquisition by Checkpoint. At a very early stage, probably like 15 months into Cyata, we started to get some inbound interest. Corp development departments started to reach out and wanted to talk to us. So tell us a little bit about how you manage that, because some people say don't talk to anyone at that stage. Some people say talk to everyone at that stage. What was your strategy?
Yeah, I always thought about it like, let's understand our opportunities. Like, some opportunities might not end up with an acquisition, but they can be a great partnership play. And I think like I've done partnerships at Celebrite as well. So I have that mindset where sometimes, just like aligning some interests can really unlock certain markets, certain opportunities down the road. And so when speaking to Corp Dev, it's not just about acquisitions, it's about, actually understanding those opportunities. And so, yes, I was attentive, and I was speaking to Corp Dev about what we have, about who we are, and about potential integrations and potential like ideas that I've had for that specific vendor. Of course, you have to figure out kind of the opportunity space and understand market dynamics, business dynamics as well. But as long as you're able to express yourself around that, I feel it didn't disrupt me. Okay, because I was really looking for great opportunities. When we started the conversation with Checkpoint, it didn't start with the acquisition play in mind. Like, and a lot of those corp dev discussions don't really start with that. We were really, exploring what we could do together, and we were we did this whole POC and we deployed inside Checkpoint, and they were testing our software, probably in the back end also understanding this might be an opportunity, but also for us, it wasn't very clear in the beginning.
Got it. And so it was a pretty quick journey. We've said that a couple of times, less than 24 months from founding to acquisition. At the same time, the company was doing really well. We could have gone out to raise an A round, and yet you guys decided at the time to sell the business. Without going into personal reasons or anything like that, we don't have to go into that. I'm interested to hear, like, when you're thinking about an acquisition, or when other founders out there are thinking about selling their company, how did you think about it? What was the framework that you used to make your decision and then think about the offer that you got from Checkpoint?
So, of course, that deliberation was also, a few good months, weeks and months of like understanding this opportunity, while negotiating, while understanding what our options are, and amongst us, we were always under this feeling that, like, concretely, we are maybe like a couple of accounts away from doubling like our valuation. And like, we had a lot of cash, we had a lot of runway, we were like, everything was open in front of us. And so, and then we also saw that dynamic that we were talking about just now, about how everyone is in the space and everyone is building sort of similar, product offerings, with some minor differences, some minor and major, but also building very close to us. And then, we were starting to evaluate, are we going to be able, to maintain this, something that we, like, I'll give it to us again. Like, we have built very quickly and high quality and like in production and got to customers with, and so could we keep that thing going like forward another year and another two? Probably yes.
Right.
But we started thinking about, hold on, this is a real opportunity right now for all of us. And then as we were kind of negotiating the details, we also understood this would be, very financially rewarding for all of our employees, which really helped us with making this decision, right? It's something that, like, you always care about, the team that came with you and what's going to happen down the road. And it was something that was very important for Checkpoint as well, to make sure that we retain everyone and ensure they are incentivized to stay. And I think that was something that helped alleviate some of those concerns. And
here we are.
Here we are.
So close the loop then for us. So tell us about what does Cyata do now within the bigger corporate of Checkpoint, and where you guys are leaving your mark within the business.
Another thing that really clicked for us was the strategic opportunity within Checkpoint, because we saw exactly, like, Checkpoint were acquiring another company just prior to us, which is Lakira, great, AI security guys from out of Zurich, amazing AI kind of, talent. And we saw that what we were building fits exactly into the wider kind of, AI security platform, and the way Gartner puts it, right? So, and so, like, we understood that they sorely need what we have right now, and we can actually build together what we have been hearing from customers that everyone needs, right? Because us, as a young startup, we said we could start building those runtime controls and prompt injection defenses, but we'll never get to the depth of someone who's been doing that for 3 years very, very quickly. And so for us, it also made, like, a lot of strategic sense to be able to, go from 0 salespeople to 2,000 salespeople, promoting this. And we're filling this right now because it's exactly what the market needs.
I heard from your co-founder, Baruch, that even before you formally started Cyata, the three of you had a Slack group, a Slack channel, called Podcast, and the purpose of that channel was to mention things along the journey of Cyata that you could talk about in a podcast after the journey had ended with Cyata. So we're now there. We're in that podcast. Tell me about some of the things that came up in that Slack channel.
Well, first of all, I will reserve some of those, for the actual podcast.
Okay.
We had a name for the podcast.
Yeah.
It was 0.3% for someone saying what the chances are for to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like a lot of funny things that are happening along the way, and you want to make sure that like you record them and that you understand, kind of look back on your journey. And I've been actually, like, I took the time out of a couple weekends ago, reading some of that Slack again, seeing our thought process, understand and like remembering the hardship and the challenges that all of those teams have as they're thinking about their approach to everything. And it's also interesting for me, like, you have that once you've sold a company, there's a newfound status. And now, like, I've started advising like a lot of those young teams that they come for advice, just like I came for advice from anyone I can find, like experienced founders. And like, it's interesting for me again to be in this position of looking back at what I did just a couple years back and what my thought process were, and seeing how that applies to a lot of people who are thinking about new problems today. I don't have the solutions to everything, but I feel when you can take this advice, go and grab it, right? It's like, this experience is invaluable. Talk to founders. Something that I felt all along the way was that anyone I reached out to was super happy and excited to see how they could help me.
Yeah.
And for me, I want to pay it forward. Like, I want to make sure that I help those teams, and I started putting in my young like angel checks. It's really exciting. So maybe one day I'll grow to be a partner in some venture capital firm, but we'll see about that.
Shahar, thank you so much for doing this with us. It was a pleasure doing this with you today, but also a pleasure working with you throughout the entire journey. Congratulations on the outcome to Checkpoint.
Thank you so much. It's been a true privilege working with you and the great guys here at TLV. Come to me and ask me, about our experience with TLV. You're going to hear a lot of great words.